Agenda host Tom Connell joins us. Tom, it's all happening where you are today. The JobKeeper package will pass Parliament, $130 billion being spent in one hit, essentially. Now, Labor's on board with this. They were never not on board, despite some of the clever language being used in Parliament House, but they are unhappy with a few things. So they'll move a few amendments, but then wave it through, won't they?
Yeah, exactly. And I think they're taking a fair enough approach. We've got one day of Parliament, Laura, so apart from anything else, you can't sort of dig your heels in over that usual fortnight of will they, won't they, and then eventually pass the thing after days of debate. But they know this is needed. There's nothing wrong as well with, them having their own views on this. Criticism on a few different levels. Last time it was about accessing super. This time, of course, it's some of those casuals left behind. And the best government explanation on the casuals is, look, we can't include everybody and it's about attaching people to jobs. Some of those casual jobs obviously are somewhat seasonal. So I think a fair enough approach. What's bizarre at the moment is, when you come to Parliament today, it's one day out of months ahead, so we don't know when we're going to sit next. $130 billion. Did you think you'd be talking about that a little while ago when we were talking about debt and deficit? And the unions being best friends now with Christian Porter. Why are they? Well, look at the situation we're in right now. You've got the unions agreeing to give the bosses power to draw down leave, make people draw down leave to 2 weeks to do different tasks. On the other side, you've got a third of businesses renegotiating loans and a quarter already asking to defer them. Think about those figures. That's how many businesses are already in trouble at the start of this crisis.
Look, you can't accuse the government of being tight here. They've spent $240 billion in just the last 3 weeks. If you would have said a Liberal government would be handing out cash like it is at the moment, coronavirus or not, a couple of weeks ago, I would have been totally shocked and would have bet against it quite heavily. Look, I take the point that Labor is saying, look, this subsection is going to miss out, this section will, but this is a safety net. And it's just that the government's going to try and save as many jobs as possible with this hibernation strategy. But don't we need to accept that the government can't save every job? And while some will fall through the cracks, the states are picking up some of the slack. There's been a package in a subsidy package, a grants package in New South Wales, for example, for some small businesses. Big companies that do have pretty healthy balance sheets will have to do some of the heavy lifting as well.
Yeah, and on the big companies with the good balance sheets and the backup cash reserves, I think that's fair enough. They have more of an ability usually as well to go to banks and get loans for the future. I think you do have an issue because big business does employ a heck of a lot of Australians. That what about those that are already in significant debt? What do they do? So if we see them go to the wall because of that harder impost to get their 50% downturn in turnover, I think that is something that perhaps might need some nuance down the track. Remember, if you have 25% turnover as a small business, you don't qualify. At 30% you do. So yes, you need a cut-off somewhere. I wonder if they could have tiered it. Perhaps that just gets a bit too complicated. So I agree on that government package. They do have to draw the line somewhere. And remember as well, Centrelink for now has been doubled. So that's in the order of about $1,100 a fortnight.
So that's the thing, Tom, just to pick you up on that. The JobKeeper payment does cover some 6 million employees via their employers. The JobSeeker payment will cover millions more. Why can't those that not eligible for JobKeeper then go to JobSeeker? I mean, if we're quibbling about a couple of $100 in difference in a fortnight, I mean, that's where we're at.
Yeah, and I still get at that sort of margin, if you were someone that was used to earning 15 or maybe 2,000, 2.5, the difference between 1,500 and 1,100, or it might be more like 1,300 after tax and 1,100. It might not be a huge difference. I'm not trivialising that. It can be the difference between, hey, can we get takeaway once a week or not? But you're right, the government it's not infinite sort of resources they have on this. They had to draw a line somewhere. The key is with the JobKeeper, as they've been saying, is keeping people attached to the employer, not just the money they're getting. Yeah,
we need to keep some perspective on all of that. I note that Labor has been quite loudly calling for Parliament to resume to some kind of normal scheduling. Look, it is quite a military operation, literally, getting some of those parliamentarians to Canberra as it is. There's the social distancing issues, there's the, travelling and whether that is a risk to spreading the virus. But also, I take Labor's point there saying, well, the government doesn't just get to ram through legislation, but the point is the government isn't doing anything other than coronavirus measures at the moment. So this Senate committee is a much better approach when it comes to oversight, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's hard to argue with. It's as long as, you know, it gets the resources, as long as it has the power, of course, and it's going to get headlines. Let's be honest, there's not much else in town to talk about. So in terms of that scrutiny, it's twofold. Yes, it's in a parliamentary sense, but then it's what that results in terms of media attention. Well, with no parliament sitting, a committee will take a much bigger focus. So I think it is fair enough. I can say that as a household that takes social distancing and isolating very seriously, when we see all those cars coming in this morning, Laura, because they're all back on our turf, I'm thinking, get out of here. So no, I'm not necessarily barracking for a whole lot of parliamentarians to descend on Canberra when they're not necessarily needed.